The Galactic Council had been a symbol of peace and unity for centuries. Delegates from hundreds of species gathered there regularly to discuss matters of trade, security, and the future of the galaxy. Each race brought their unique strengths to the table, but for the longest time, humanity had been the driving force behind many key decisions. At first, it had been the humans' adaptability that caught the attention of the galactic leaders. Their ability to think outside the box, to find solutions where others saw none, had earned them a place among the most respected and influential species. In the past, no matter how tense the situation, humanity had always been at the heart of negotiations, but today something was different. The assembly hall was silent, a strange heaviness in the air. Representatives from the Talon, a species with glowing skin and a deep connection to the telepathic currents of the galaxy, sat at one end of the room, their translucent eyes fixed on the humans. The Craven, their reptilian eyes flicking nervously, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the Orcs, a highly intelligent species known for their strategic brilliance, seemed uneasy. At the center of the room sat Commander Alara Voss, leader of the human delegation. She was tall and composed, her dark hair tied back in a practical braid, her eyes sharp with quiet intensity. But it wasn't her presence that made the room uneasy. It was the absence of the usual human energy that everyone had come to expect. For years, Commander Voss had been the voice of reason in the council, the one who could always be counted on to offer a solution, to mediate disputes. But today, she was silent. The human representatives, usually the most vocal members of the council, sat still, their gazes fixed forward. Not a word was spoken. The silence stretched on for minutes that felt like hours. The Craven leader, a towering figure with sharp, scaled features, was the first to break the tension. He leaned forward, his voice thick with suspicion. "Commander Voss," he began, his voice a low growl. "Your people are known for their wisdom, yet today you sit here in silence. What has happened?" Alara didn't immediately respond. The room waited, and for a moment there was a quiet tension in the air, almost as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Then, with a calmness that was almost unsettling, Alara finally spoke. "We've decided it's time to stop," she said, her voice even and deliberate but carrying an undeniable weight. "Time to stop pretending the galaxy isn't what you think it is. The peace you've built here is fragile, held together by agreements that are only good until they're tested. And we are tired of being part of that charade." A ripple of shock passed through the room. The Talon delegates exchanged uncertain glances, their minds buzzing with confusion. The Orcs, normally stoic and calm, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Craven leader scoffed, his voice rising in anger. "What are you saying, human? Are you abandoning the council? Abandoning the galaxy?" "We're not abandoning anyone," Alara replied, her gaze unflinching. "We are simply stepping away. The games you play here, the endless debates and compromises, have no longer any meaning to us. There are larger issues at hand, and humanity's priorities have changed." Another murmur swept through the assembly. The Talon leader, a lithe figure with shimmering skin, stood up, his voice rising in urgency. "You cannot simply walk away from the galaxy's future. Humanity has been an integral part of this council. Your absence will create chaos. You cannot make decisions like this without consequences." Alara's eyes narrowed. "Consequences?" she echoed softly. "I am afraid you misunderstand. We are not leaving to create chaos. We are leaving because we can. You all think you hold the keys to the galaxy's future, but the truth is, no one knows what humanity is truly capable of. We've held our tongues long enough, played by rules that were never ours to begin with." There was a sudden deafening silence. The very air in the room seemed to hang heavy, as if the galaxies themselves were watching, waiting for the next move. No one spoke for a long moment. The Craven leader was the first to recover from the shock, but his voice was more a hiss than a question. "What do you mean by that, human? What have you been hiding all this time?" Alara met his gaze, her face unreadable. You think you know us. You think we are just another species, another cog in the Council's machinery. But we are not. And you will soon understand that. Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time in centuries, the other representatives felt a flicker of fear. Fear not of humanity's weapons. No one had ever feared the humans' military force, but fear of the unknown. Humanity had always been unpredictable, their resilience unmatched. But this was something else. This was a humanity that had chosen not to engage in the systems that held the galaxy together. The Talon leader, who had been silent for some time, finally spoke again, his voice edged with disbelief. What are you asking us to do, Commander? Will you leave us to fight for ourselves? To face the chaos that will surely follow your withdrawal? Ilara's expression softened, just slightly. No, Talon, she said quietly. You will not fight for yourselves. We will be here, watching, and when the galaxy is ready to listen, we will speak again. But for now you will find that humanity is not a species you can manipulate or control. We are far more than that. The room was still. The galaxy had watched as humanity had always been a reliable partner in their ongoing efforts to maintain peace. But now that foundation was cracking. What would happen without the steady voice of humanity? Could the Council hold itself together without them? Ilara rose from her seat, her team following suit. As they turned to leave, a soft hum filled the air, the sound of the door to the council chambers sliding open. Ilara's final words echoed back to the assembly as she exited. Let the galaxy watch in terror as humans abandon the table, and, with that, the doors closed, leaving the council to consider the impossible. Humanity had turned away from the table, and no one knew what would happen next. The news of humanity's shocking withdrawal from the Galactic Council spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Planetary leaders, military commanders, and diplomats from every corner of the known universe gathered in emergency meetings, attempting to understand what had just happened. On Earth, however, things were calm. The streets were quiet as usual, with humans going about their daily routines. For many, life continued without any noticeable shift. They had heard the message from Commander Ilara Voss, but it didn't shake them the way it had rattled the galaxy's other species. To them, the decision felt like something inevitable, something that had been building for years. In the sleek, metallic chambers of Earth's government headquarters, a few human leaders gathered to discuss their next steps. They had long known that their species' relationship with the galaxy was growing strained. Years of being ignored, manipulated, and forced into endless negotiations had taken a toll on humanity's leaders. But now, it was clear. The decision to step away from the council was no mistake. It was a declaration. The room was filled with quiet murmurs as various officials exchanged uncertain glances. A large screen displayed the faces of several high-ranking humans who were still on distant diplomatic missions, some on the farthest reaches of the galaxy. They were watching the unfolding events with a mix of concern and curiosity. Did we make the right choice? General Marcus Haynes asked, his voice betraying the doubts many were feeling. The galaxy won't sit by and watch this. We've just destabilized everything. Commander Voss stood near the front of the room, arms crossed, her expression calm yet resolute. The galaxy has never understood us, not really, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. For years, we've tried to fit ourselves into a system that only ever used us. We've held our tongues while others played politics. And now, it's time for change. I agree with Ilara, said Dr. Selena Novak, a leading scientist, and one of the architects of humanity's growing technological edge. But we can't ignore the implications. The galaxy will think we've turned our backs on them. And maybe we have, Ilara replied, her gaze steady as she spoke. But the truth is they've abandoned us long ago. They just don't know it yet. On the surface, Earth's decision to withdraw had seemed like a sharp break from the galaxy's political systems, but underneath it was a message far deeper. Humanity wasn't retreating into isolation. They were preparing to act. But act in what way? Across the stars, the message had struck a nerve. Leaders from the Talon, Craven and Arkal had begun making frantic calls to Earth's government, trying to understand how to move forward. They demanded explanations, but Commander Voss's words were clear. Humanity no longer seeks approval. The galaxy has its systems. We have ours. In the vast space stations orbiting other worlds, ambassadors from various species scrambled to make sense of the situation. The Telan telepathically communicated, discussing among themselves whether they should reach out to humanity directly. But their efforts were met with silence. What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity's silence was not weakness, it was a sign of their strength. Earth had prepared for this moment. For years, a select few had been quietly working on technologies that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. But until now, these technologies had been kept under wraps, hidden from the prying eyes of their galactic peers. Back on Earth, Dr. Novak and her team had recently completed a project that was still under wraps, something no other species had even begun to imagine. Using cutting-edge quantum manipulation and dark energy harvesting, they had figured out how to stabilize collapsing stars. These stars, once considered the galaxy's most terrifying and destructive force, were now humanity's greatest asset. Commander Voss had authorized the project, but only after careful deliberation. The humans were not interested in destruction. They weren't aiming for war, but they were ready to ensure that the galaxy could no longer treat them as a secondary power. Dr. Novak's team was now tasked with the delicate job of monitoring several key locations where these new technologies could be tested. They had already prepared a demonstration, a powerful display of humanity's mastery over forces once believed to be beyond control. As the galaxy watched, unaware of humanity's true capabilities, Earth's leaders began to prepare. They activated secret communication channels, sending encrypted messages to those they trusted in the outer colonies. The time for silence was over, and soon they would show the galaxy just how serious their decision truly was. Back in the council chambers, confusion still reigned. The Craven had long been aggressive and territorial, but they now found themselves in an unfamiliar position, uncertain and cautious. The Telan, always the voice of reason, were desperate to know what the humans were planning, fearing their actions might set off a chain reaction of unrest across the stars. On the Arcal homeworld, their council convened in a rare emergency session. The Arcal were the most strategic and calculating species in the galaxy, and even they were unable to predict humanity's next move. "I've analyzed every possible outcome," said an Arcal strategist, his many eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Nothing fits. The humans have broken the rules and they hold all the cards. This isn't just a protest. It's something more." In a dimly lit chamber deep within the Arcal's war archives, one of their leaders finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly with the realization of what humanity might be capable of. "We have to reach out to them. We need to understand what they've hidden, and we need to do it now." But by the time their message reached Earth, it was too late. Commander Voss had already made it clear, humanity was no longer negotiating, they were no longer waiting for approval. The galaxy's greatest power had been silent for too long, and now they would show just how powerful silence could truly be. While the galaxy buzzed with confusion and fear, humanity on Earth had been quietly preparing for the moment they would no longer need to play by anyone else's rules. The decision to leave the Galactic Council was not a sudden one. It had been years in the making, a response to a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment. But now, humanity had decided to show the galaxy a side of themselves that had been hidden for centuries, the true extent of their power. In secret labs buried beneath the surface of Earth, humanity's greatest minds worked tirelessly on projects that would change the course of the galaxy. These projects were not meant for warfare. They were meant to show the galaxy that humanity was no longer bound by the old systems. They were about to reveal their capabilities, and the galaxy was not ready for what was to come. Dr. Selene Novak, one of the lead scientists behind humanity's breakthrough in energy manipulation, stood in front of a massive holographic screen. The room around her was filled with the hum of computers and the quiet movement of other scientists and engineers. They had spent years developing a technology that could harness the power of collapsed stars. Black holes, once thought to be the universe's most dangerous and unpredictable force. The technology had come out of humanity's determination to understand the universe. What once seemed like a force of destruction was now under their control. Humanity had found a way to stabilize black holes and use their energy without causing massive devastation. "We can do this," Dr. Novak said to her team, her voice steady but filled with excitement. "The first test will be a success." "I know," the team around her nodded, the weight of the task ahead clear in their eyes. They had already run simulations, tested every variable, and ensured that the process would not be catastrophic. It had taken years to build the machines capable of stabilizing a black hole, but now they were ready to demonstrate humanity's mastery over something that had been beyond anyone's control for millennia. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, representatives from various species were scrambling to understand the full implications of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The Craven were in an uproar, their leaders demanding answers, while the Talon debated whether they should attempt to reach out to humanity once more. But all their efforts were met with silence. What they didn't know was that humanity wasn't just retreating into isolation. They were preparing for something far more powerful. A few weeks after humanity's announcement, the first demonstration took place. On a distant, uninhabited planet at the edge of known space, humanity's engineers activated their experimental system. Using the power of a stable black hole, they began to generate energy on a scale never before seen in the galaxy. The result was stunning. The planet's atmosphere crackled with energy as the black hole's power was harnessed, turned into a stable energy source. The surrounding space shimmered with light, the energy released by the black hole flowing smoothly into the planet's power grid. It was as though the entire galaxy had witnessed the impossible. But the demonstration wasn't just for show. It was a warning. The humans had shown that they now controlled the very forces of the universe, forces that had once threatened to tear apart entire star systems. And they had done it without firing a single weapon, without any military action. They had used their minds, their innovation, and their resilience to unlock the secrets of the universe. Across the galaxy, leaders watched in stunned silence as the broadcasted demonstration sent waves of shock throughout the council chambers. The Craven were the first to react, their reptilian minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. "Impossible," the Craven leader muttered. "No species has ever done this. Not even the Talon, with their psychic abilities, could manipulate something as unstable as a black hole." The Talon, who had always prided themselves on their deep connection to the telepathic currents of the galaxy, were speechless. The very thing they had once feared was now under human control, and they had no idea how to respond. For the Orcs, who prided themselves on being the most strategic species in the galaxy, the demonstration left them with only one conclusion: humanity was no longer a species they could ignore. They had crossed a line, one that had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. Back on Earth, Commander Alara Voss watched the reactions from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Her expression remained calm, but there was a glint in her eyes. One that spoke of deep satisfaction. Humanity had made its point. Now they would wait. In the council chambers, the representatives were no longer arguing about the human withdrawal. They were scrambling to figure out how to handle this new power, this new reality. The galaxy had always operated under the assumption that humanity was just another species, one among many, but now they realized they had underestimated the humans. "We need to find out everything we can about this new power," said the Talon leader, his voice filled with urgency. "We must understand it before it's too late." The Craven were already preparing their forces, ready to strike if the humans tried to use their newfound power against them. They feared what humanity could do with this ability, but they were not the only ones. The Orcs, ever the cautious, planners began to make their own preparations, understanding that the galaxy was now in a state of uncertainty. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humanity's engineers and scientists continued to refine their control over the black hole energy. They knew that the galaxy would soon realize that humanity was no longer playing by the old rules. They had stepped away from the table, but they had also redefined what it meant to be a player in the galaxy. Humanity had always been known for its resilience, but now they had something more: the power to shape the very fabric of the universe itself. The galaxy had seen many strange things in its long history: planets swallowed by stars, civilizations born and lost, wars that shook the skies. But never had it seen something like this. Humanity's black hole experiment had become the most talked about event across the stars. The footage of the demonstration played again and again in every council, war room, and research lab. The humans had turned a deadly black hole into a controlled power source, and they had done it with calm precision. No violence, no chaos, just raw, quiet power. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a warning. In the vast meeting hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from more than 50 species sat in silence. The massive screen showed the black hole, its dark core pulsing with energy, surrounded by human-built machines glowing with blue light. The energy flowed like water into huge storage arrays. Not one human was seen on the planet. Everything had been operated remotely. "They've done what we thought was impossible," whispered the Talon envoy, his glowing fingers twitching nervously. "They have touched the mouth of destruction and walked away unharmed." The Craven leader slammed a clawed fist onto the table. "This is a threat. Do you not see it? They are showing us that they no longer need peace. They have power." But others were not so quick to speak of war. The Archaal, calm and logical, requested a detailed study. "Before we act, we must understand. If humanity has truly mastered such forces, we need more than weapons. We need knowledge. Fear alone cannot guide us." The council members began to argue. Some demanded immediate action. Others warned against pushing humans too far. But deep down, they all knew the same truth. The galaxy had changed, and there was no going back. On Earth, in a high-security chamber under the North Atlantic Ocean, Commander Ilara Voss stood before a long glass window. Behind the glass was another black hole core, smaller, more stable, but just as powerful. Blue energy pulsed through thick cables as her scientists monitored the data. She turned to Dr. Selena Novak. "What's the reaction from the galaxy?" Selena checked her display pad. "Mixed. Some are terrified, some are curious. The Craven are readying ships, but the Talon want a meeting. And the Archaal, they're watching, but not moving yet." Ilara nodded. "That's what we expected." "Do you think we should respond?" Selene asked. "No," Ilara said. "Not yet. Let them feel the weight of our silence." Across Earth's secret network of outposts and space stations, similar experiments were underway. The humans were not only harnessing black holes, they were also building something bigger, structures that could create artificial gravity wells, warp travel systems, and even early prototypes of controlled wormholes. But the most surprising part wasn't the technology. It was humanity's choice not to use it for war. On a quiet moon near the edge of the Craven Empire, a powerful human ship entered orbit. It didn't fire weapons. It didn't send threats. Instead, it deployed a small station that began stabilizing the moon's failing atmosphere. The Craven scientists, at first afraid, soon realized that the station was healing their environment. The humans had come, done their work silently, and left without saying a word. The message was clear: we have power, but we are not your enemy. Still, not everyone saw it that way. On the Craven homeworld, General Threx growled in frustration. "They are playing mind games. They want us to beg them to return to the council. They are making us look weak." His advisors hesitated. "But General, they have not attacked. They are helping planets survive. Maybe they do not want war." "No," Threx hissed. "They want control, and we will not bow to them." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, fear was turning into desperation. The Talon sent a message directly to Earth. "Humanity, we ask for peace. We seek a new council, built not on old rules but shared trust. Let us talk." The message received no answer. The Archaal leader, Prime Analyst Rune observed the silence with care. He understood something the others didn't. They are waiting, he told his people. Waiting for the galaxy to prove it has learned something, that we can respect them not because we fear them, but because we see who they truly are. Weeks passed. Human ships began appearing near damaged outposts and unstable stars. They never spoke, never asked for anything, but they always left something behind. Clean energy systems, stable shields, and technology far beyond what others had. And with each silent gift, the galaxy felt more uneasy. What did the humans want? Power? Revenge or something else? On Earth, Alara stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The sky was calm. She watched the clouds move slowly and thought about the council halls she had once sat in. We could take it all, Celine said, walking up beside her. The galaxy is afraid. We have enough power now to make them listen to anything we say. Ilara shook her head. That's not what this is about. We left the table because it was broken. But that doesn't mean we want to build a new one, just for ourselves. Then what's next? Celine asked. Ilara looked up at the stars. We wait, we watch. And when the galaxy is ready to talk with truth, not with fear, not with politics, we'll be there. Far beyond Earth, the stars watched in silence, and so did humanity. They had abandoned the table, but they had not abandoned hope. The galaxy was at a crossroads. For the first time in recorded history, a species had voluntarily stepped away from the largest political body in the known universe, and no one knew what would happen next. The Galactic Council, once an assembly of carefully negotiated peace and balance, was now in chaos. Diplomats, military leaders, and scientists from every species were scrambling to respond to humanity's sudden and shocking withdrawal. The tension in the council chambers was palpable, with voices rising in frustration, fear, and uncertainty. We cannot sit idle any longer, said the Talon leader, his voice calm but filled with urgency. The humans have disrupted everything we've worked for. We must bring them back. But how? Asked a Craven representative, his voice thick with suspicion. They won't listen to us now. The more we push, the more we risk a confrontation we can't win. The Arcal strategist, Prime Analyst Rune, sat at the far end of the table, his many eyes narrowing as he studied the situation. He had always been cautious, but now he felt the weight of humanity's decision press upon him. The Arcal were masters of strategy, but this was a game they had never played before. We can't force them to return, Rune said slowly. That much is clear. But we need to understand what they want. Why did they do this? We need to meet them on their terms, not ours. The Talon representative nodded. Rune is right, we must find out what the humans are after. If we fail to understand their intentions, we risk more than just diplomacy. We risk the future of the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander, Ilara Voss and her team watched the Council's growing panic from their secure facility beneath the surface of the planet. They had anticipated this reaction, but it was still satisfying to see it unfold. I think they're finally starting to realize what we've been saying all along, Ilara remarked, her voice calm, but sharp. They never really understood us, did they? No, Dr. Celine Novak replied, her eyes fixed on the live feed from the Council. They only saw us as another player in their game. Now they have no choice but to face the reality that we don't play by their rules. Ilara leaned back in her chair thinking, we've made our point, but they're still blind to what we're capable of. They think we're just waiting to strike, but we're not interested in war. We've left that behind. Celine looked at her with concern. So, what's next? Are we just going to wait for them to come to us? Yes, Ilara said firmly. We've shown them what we can do. Now we let them decide how they want to move forward. The galaxy is on the edge of a new order, and it's up to them whether they'll be part of it. Back in the council chambers, the representatives from the different species were now speaking in rapid, nervous tones. The debate had shifted from whether to act against humanity to how to reach them. We need to send an emissary, said a high-ranking Talon diplomat. A neutral party, someone who can understand humanity's motivations and bring them back into the fold. The Craven representative was less convinced. I don't trust that. Humanity has shown us its power. They could destroy us if they wanted. We should prepare for war, not diplomacy. No, the Archal strategist interjected. War is not the answer. If we go to war, humanity will walk away victorious and we will lose everything. We must offer something they cannot refuse, a genuine reason for them to return. The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was unsure of its next step. Days passed, and the Council continued to struggle with its decision. The Craven were preparing their fleets just in case, but they were hesitant to act without a clear reason. The Talon, on the other hand, began making plans for an emissary mission to Earth, hoping to open a new line of communication with the humans. Finally, after much debate, the Council agreed to send a representative, a neutral envoy, someone who could reach out to the humans without the baggage of previous tensions. The Talon offered to send one of their own, but the Archal insisted that a different species, one with no prior connection to the humans, should be chosen. After much negotiation, it was decided that the mission would be led by the neutral race known as the Jir, a species known for their ability to read situations calmly and fairly. The Jir representative, a tall, angular figure named Viroth, was tasked with traveling to Earth and meeting with Commander Alara Voss. The Council gave him strict orders to avoid threats and promises of power. This was to be a diplomatic mission, a chance for peace to return to the galaxy. But Viroth knew that even a single wrong move could destroy any chance of reconciliation. Viroth's ship arrived in Earth's atmosphere without incident. He had been briefed on humanity's capabilities and was fully aware of the potential danger. He knew the humans were watching. The silence in the galaxy had not been lost on him. As his ship descended toward Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. On Earth, Alara Voss stood at the edge of the vast open plain where she had arranged to meet the Zir envoy. The land was quiet, the air crisp, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. When the Zir ship touched down, it was a sleek, dark vessel, landing softly on the ground. The door opened with a hiss, and Viroth stepped out, his eyes hidden behind a transparent visor. Alara didn't move at first, watching the envoy carefully. She had no need for fancy words or ceremonies. This was a meeting between equals, and she intended to keep it that way. Viroth approached her slowly, his voice calm and neutral. Commander Voss, I come on behalf of the Galactic Council. We seek to understand your intentions. The galaxy is uncertain. We want to talk. Alara stepped forward, her eyes steady. We have no need for your counsel anymore, but I'm willing to listen. Ask your questions, and I'll give you my answers. The envoy nodded, sensing the quiet power that radiated from the human leader. This wasn't the confrontation he had expected, but perhaps it was the beginning of a new understanding. The galaxy was changing, and the humans had made their choice. But whether the galaxy was ready to change with them remained to be seen. The Jir envoy, Viroth, stood across from Commander Alara Voss, their silent exchange stretching for what felt like eternity. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken words, and yet both knew that this moment could change the galaxy forever. The human leader was calm, her posture relaxed but firm, her eyes sharp with a sense of quiet authority. The Jir envoy, though composed, could sense the power that lingered beneath her words. You wish to understand our intentions? Alara spoke first, breaking the silence. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it that left no room for misunderstanding. We walked away from the council because we saw no reason to stay. The systems in place were broken long before we left, but we played along, hoping for change. We stopped playing because we realized the galaxy isn't ready for it. Viroth, whose species was known for their ability to read a situation with perfect calm, studied her closely. He had known that humans were unpredictable, but the depth of their resolve was more evident now than ever. The demonstration of their control over black holes was only the beginning. There was something deeper at play, something more significant. I see, Viroth replied, his voice measured. You seek change, but you do not wish to impose it through force. Your power, it seems, is not for conquest but for something else. Ilara nodded slightly. Correct. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy. We do not seek to dominate or control anyone. What we seek is respect. And more than that, understanding. The galaxy has never truly understood us, and we've been forced to adapt to systems that do not fit who we are. Viroth lowered his gaze, contemplating her words. The humans had been a paradox in the galaxy. Strong, resilient, yet quiet. Always willing to help, yet always overlooked. He had not come to this meeting expecting a confrontation, but the reality was clearer now. Humanity was not just a player in the galaxy. They were something else entirely. We failed you, didn't we? Viroth said softly, his voice betraying a rare moment of vulnerability. The Council, we treated you as one of many, never truly listening to your needs. Ilara's expression softened just slightly as she took in his words. Yes, but it's not too late. The Council can still change. The galaxy can still change. The Zir envoy stood silent for a long moment, reflecting on what he had just heard. The stakes were higher than he had initially understood. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and the humans were no longer willing to play by the old rules. They were offering the galaxy a chance to evolve, but would the other species be able to rise to the challenge? I will take your message back to the Council, Viroth said, his tone resolute. I will not promise that they will accept it right away, but I believe they will listen. Ilara nodded, her eyes steady. Good, because this time we are not waiting. If the galaxy is willing to change, we will work with it. If not, we will not force our will. We will go our own way, but we will always watch. With that, Viroth turned and walked back toward his ship, his mind racing with what he had just learned. The humans were not the threat the galaxy had feared. They were the future, and whether the galaxy accepted that or not would determine its fate. As Viroth's ship ascended from Earth's surface, the silent promise between him and Ilara lingered in the air. There was still much work to be done. The galaxy had been shaken to its core, and many of its leaders were still struggling to understand how to respond to the humans' unexpected silence. Yet, in the heart of the galaxy, the question remained. Could the galaxy truly evolve, or would it continue to follow the same old patterns of power and control? The answer was not something Ilara could give alone. It was something that every species would have to decide for itself, and while the Council debated and argued, humanity would continue to move forward, quietly, resolutely, shaping its own path. Back in the Council chambers, the debate was intensifying. Viroth had returned, and the representatives of the various species were eager to hear what he had learned. The Talon leader was the first to speak. So what did you discover? He asked, his voice tense. What did the humans want? Viroth paused before answering, choosing his words carefully. They do not want war, nor do they seek dominance. What they seek is respect and understanding. They have left the Council not because they wish to isolate themselves, but because they believe the systems in place are no longer serving anyone. They are offering us a chance to evolve, to move beyond the old politics that have kept us divided. A murmur ran through the room as the representatives processed this new information. The Craven leader, ever skeptical, grunted in disbelief. So, what now? Do we simply accept this offer and bow to them? Do we let them dictate the future? Viroth shook his head. They are not asking for that. They are asking for us to change, to listen, and to work together. If we are not ready for that, they will leave us behind, but they will not impose their will. The Arcal strategist, Prime Analyst Rune, who had remained quiet through much of the discussion, finally spoke. This is a test, Rune said, his voice calm but filled with authority. The humans have shown us that they are not to be feared, but respected. If we continue to follow the same old path of politics, we risk losing their trust forever. This is our chance to create a new order, a true galaxy-wide alliance based on mutual respect, not control. The room fell silent as the representatives absorbed Rune's words. For the first time they understood. The galaxy had always been about balance, but it had been a fragile, often dishonest balance. Humanity had offered a new way forward, one that required humility, understanding, and cooperation. And if the galaxy wanted to survive, it had no choice but to accept it. On Earth, Commander Alara Voss stood on a quiet balcony, looking up at the stars. She had done what she could to shake the galaxy awake, but now it was in their hands. She knew the future would not be easy, but humanity had made its choice. They had turned away from the table, but they were not turning away from hope. A new era was on the horizon, and humanity was ready to walk it alone or with others. The galaxy had the chance to join them, if it was willing to change.